I've always been drawn to the silent stories held within fossils, those echoes of lives lived and lost. Sometimes those stories transcend mere science, whispering tales of agony and desperate survival. I'm thinking now of a place known as the Drowning Cemetery, a site in southern Alberta, Canada. There, in what was once a floodplain near an ancient river, lies one of the largest concentrations of dinosaur fossils ever found. It's a macabre snapshot of a moment of natural horror, all those bones belonging to Centrosaurus. These creatures, medium-sized herbivores with impressive nasal horns and ornamented frills, lived during the late Cretaceous period, around 76 million years ago. They moved in herds, a massive prehistoric life synchronized by centuries of behavioral evolution. But their group life, ironically, became their undoing on one fateful day. The rain came down in a torrential downpour, transforming their familiar territory into a chaotic nightmare. Mud, raging currents, and sheer despair took over. The ground, saturated and unstable, began to give way. Caught completely by surprise, the Centrosaurus tried to flee, but the panicked escape only led to more destruction. Those at the front were the first to fall, many trampled by their own companions. Others were swept away by the force of the flood, dragged into lower areas where they were buried alive by the mud. Some, the younger or weaker ones, simply couldn't keep up with the herd. Death came swiftly for some, but for others, it was slow and agonizing. What remained was a tangled mass of bodies, compressed under the weight of tons of flesh, bone, and earth. And then, with time, silence fell. Decomposition gave way to fossilization. Horror transformed into geological record. Millions of years later, humans would carefully excavate that soil with brushes and spatulas, revealing an unprecedented discovery. More than 10,000 bones belonging to a single species in a single location. The scientists who studied the site realized this wasn't the result of deaths occurring over generations. It was a single, catastrophic event that wiped out an entire herd. The uniformity of the fossils, the lack of erosion on the bones, and the absence of signs of predation all screamed urgency, desperation, and tragedy. Then there's the story of the Triceratops, a creature that could grow to over 9 meters long and weigh up to 12 tons. Imagine this giant herbivore, Triceratops horridus, with its 3 sharp horns and protective bony frill, slowly walking across the plains of a lost world. It was one of the last dinosaurs to inhabit the Earth before the mass extinction event around 66 million years ago. Among the many Triceratops fossils discovered, one in particular tells a dark story marked by pain, survival, and violence. Paleontologists were drawn to a well-preserved skull with perforations in vulnerable areas of the facial bone. These perforations, upon analysis, revealed a specific pattern, curvature, spacing, and depth compatible with only one living creature of that time, Tyrannosaurus Rex. The powerful jaws of this predator could exert a force of more than 5 tons, enough to crush bone and tear away chunks of flesh. But what makes this case so intriguing is that the Triceratops didn't die during the attack. The bone surrounding the perforations showed clear signs of irregular growth, an inflammatory bone callus indicating the body's attempt to heal. The Triceratops had survived. This discovery changes the traditional narrative of the late Cretaceous food chain. Instead of a simple predation scene, we see a more complex drama: the attack, survival, infection, continuous pain, and finally, a slow death. The skull becomes a witness not only to a brutal fight, but also to the resilience of a wounded animal struggling to carry on. The infection that settled into the perforations was severe. The disorganized bone growth indicates that the body reacted however it could. This inflammatory response is a clear sign that it lived for several weeks, perhaps even months, after the attack. Every movement of the jaw, every bite of leaves or branches, must have caused excruciating pain. And now let's travel to the heart of the Gobi Desert, one of the most inhospitable and arid regions on the planet. Here lies one of the most dramatic testimonies of the age of dinosaurs, a moment frozen in time more than 70 million years ago, where life and death became intertwined in a fierce dance. This is the fossil known as the fighting dinosaurs, Protoceratops versus Velociraptor. I find myself returning to the image of a velociraptor forever frozen in combat, leg raised, that iconic sickle-shaped claw driving into the neck of its prey, and the Protoceratops, jaws clamped down hard on the attacker's arm. What fascinates me isn't just the depiction of these creatures, but the captured instant, a mutual death, preserved by the sand. Time itself seems to have paused, recording the raw ferocity of nature. Now picture this. Approximately 66 million years ago, in what is now Montana, one of the most brutal confrontations of the Cretaceous period reached its end. The sound of death echoed, muffled by a blow of unimaginable force. The supreme predator, Tyrannosaurus Rex, met its end in a shocking and unexpected way. This particular fossil, nicknamed Pex Rex, tells a story unlike any other. When scientists analyzed the skeleton, they discovered a massive puncture wound in the neck, precisely where vital arteries, the trachea, and crucial muscles were located. It was as if someone had driven a spear straight into the animal's vital systems. But this spear wasn't metal. It was bone, the horn of a Triceratops. I can almost see the scene unfolding in the minds of paleontologists. A close-quarters confrontation, a decisive strike, a hunting attempt gone wrong. The greatest terrestrial predator became the prey. Bone fragments around the puncture indicate the impact was so deep that it pierced soft tissues, blood vessels, and likely the trachea. There were no signs of healing, meaning the blow was fatal, or at least the direct cause of death. This fossil was discovered in 1997 by a geologist named Bob Harmon, while excavating a region known for its Cretaceous deposits. The nickname Pex Rex was given in honor of Louis Peck, the owner of the ranch where it was found. It's a silent message written into every fracture, every shattered bone, that continues to fascinate scientists and the public alike. And beyond individual deaths, there are mass group deaths. True dinosaur cemeteries have been unearthed in many parts of the world, skeletons tangled together, as if the animals died in a desperate attempt to escape. They tried to flee, they tried to survive, but there was no time. Sandstorms, violent floods, mudslides, sudden, merciless natural forces that transformed the landscape in the blink of an eye. Those who lived there were swallowed alive by the very environment they once called home. These fossil sites reveal rare moments of prehistoric life frozen in time, not in isolation, but in community. Entire dinosaur families, from juveniles to adults, preserved side by side, their deaths bearing witness to an instant of collective panic. These weren't natural deaths, isolated or spread out over time. They were sudden events, catastrophic moments when nature turned against its own children with devastating fury. In China, within the Yixian Formation, entire groups of Psittacosaurus, small bipedal herbivores, have been found piled together in layers of volcanic sediment. All evidence suggests they were buried alive by ash from a sudden eruption. In Mongolia, sandstorms engulfed dinosaurs in mid-motion. Their poses preserved within the desert reveal final attempts to escape an inevitable death. In Madagascar, a mudslide captured an entire group of Majungasaurus, feared predators that, according to the evidence, had no time to fight back. They were crushed, immobilized, preserved. Discoveries in North America, such as the Morrison Formation in the United States, reveal the remains of Diplodocus and other sauropods grouped in patterns suggesting entire herds were wiped out at once by sudden floods. These sites allow us to see beyond death, showing us how dinosaurs lived, how they organized themselves into herds, families, and social structures, and how even in groups they were vulnerable to the power of nature. And then there are the Pachyrhinosaurus, crushed in a stampede. In the petrified silence of time, when the world was still ruled by gigantic reptiles, a tragedy unfolded beneath the darkened skies of ancient North America. The bones belonged to Pachyrhinosaurus, a gregarious herbivore whose head was adorned with thick bony bosses rather than sharp horns. But it's not this animal's appearance that draws attention. It is the way it died. Paleontologists carefully excavating a vast rock formation in what is now the Canadian territory of Alberta encountered a macabre scene. Dozens of Pachyrhinosaurus fossils stacked atop one another with bones crushed and fractured. Imagine the terror. Dozens of tons of flesh and bone collapsing, crushing. A herd of Pachyrhinosaurus, peaceful herbivores usually, now in a frenzy. The fossils tell a story of panic, a desperate flight from something awful, a predator, a wildfire, a storm. The compression marks on their skeletons. They speak of a chaotic stampede, not a simple fall or a single predator attack. These creatures, a family or social unit it seems, collided in their terror. Among the fossils, we find the young and the old, even hatchlings. It suggests they lived and died together. They likely cared for their young, maybe forming defensive circles as elephants do today. But against pure panic, no defense holds. I find myself wondering about the last moments of these creatures. Not all died instantly, the fossils suggest. The fracture is raw, as if it happened just days, maybe even hours, before death. This leads to a grim hypothesis. The Carnotaurus died soon after the injury. And if that's true, the cause of death was perhaps even more cruel: starvation. Unable to fully open its jaw or apply the force needed to kill prey, it may have slowly wasted away. I imagine its suffering, every attempt to bite sending waves of pain through its body. Each step slower, more hesitant. A predator transformed into a shadow of its former self, pushed out of territorial disputes, abandoned by prey, maybe even by its own kind. And then there's Tyrannosaurus Rex. Imagine bite marks on its bones made by another Tyrannosaurus Rex. In a landscape fossilized from 66 million years ago, a giant once rested, the tyrant lizard king of the Cretaceous. But even kings face challenges. A fossil discovered in Montana reveals something fascinating and unprecedented about this predator. Bite marks on its own bones, made by another Tyrannosaurus Rex. This discovery, both surprising and unsettling, sheds light on their behavior in a way we could only imagine before. The tooth marks don't belong to a smaller predator. They match the robust, widely spaced, deeply penetrating dentition of another tyrannosaur. It forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about their social and feeding habits. Is it cannibalism? A fierce territorial dispute? Or simply a meal where opportunity outweighed social restraint? To understand the significance, we must first understand who Tyrannosaurus Rex was. 13 meters in length, nearly 4 meters tall at the hips, with a jaw capable of exerting up to 6 tons of pres. It was more than a predator. It was a bone crusher. Its banana-shaped teeth were capable of crushing. I've spent years studying fossils, but the marks on these bones, they tell a story unlike any textbook could. Imagine a Tyrannosaurus Rex, its teeth sinking into the skull of another, tearing away flesh. It's a gruesome image, but one preserved in the fossil record with startling clarity. Those teeth, those very teeth, left their signatures on fossil remains unearthed in Montana. The bite marks appear all over: skull, jaw, arms, legs. The depth and clarity of the bite patterns reveal the precise moment one tyrannosaur pressed its teeth against the bone, tearing away flesh and even fragmenting the carcass. It's a time capsule, offering a glimpse into behaviors that theories alone could never fully describe. But what does this mean? Was Tyrannosaurus Rex consuming its own kind? And if so, why? The most widely accepted idea is opportunistic cannibalism. In the harsh environments of the late Cretaceous, food scarcity could have pushed even the largest predators to feed on the remains of their own species. It's not unheard of, even today. Crocodiles, sharks, even bears sometimes resort to cannibalism when circumstances demand it. Why would it have been different 66 million years ago? Or perhaps there's an even more dramatic explanation. Maybe a fierce battle between two Tyrannosaurus Rex individuals, a fight over territory, mating rights, or dominance over a kill. In the aftermath, the victor may have consumed parts of its defeated rival. We see similar behavior in modern predators. Wolves, for instance, sometimes kill members of rival packs and feed on them. In this scenario, Tyrannosaurus Rex becomes more than just a killing machine. It becomes an animal with complex social behaviors, taken to an extreme.